Hey, yo, it's Guido coming at you with a Tactics Talk. We got a new submission from Gaidinward. Gaidinward has sent in a couple things and asked me to give him a little bit of help here. And so I'm looking at his stats, and as usual with this, has absolutely zero to do with any kind of stat shaming. It has a lot to do with me trying to figure out where they've been so far in their WOT career and maybe look at some of the things either they're doing well or not doing very well that we can talk about and try to improve. So we look at Gaidinward, he's at 47%, slightly below average on the win rate. Average damage at 619, a pretty standard curve for tiers. So a 619 damage average with the tiers that you play is low. So what we need to do is we need to up your damage. So how do we do that? We'll talk about that when we get to the replays. Some of the things you can start to work on right there. He plays everything. I appreciate that. That's cool because that means you're learning all the aspects of the game, and that's very good. Even Artie, because you can learn how to play Artie and you can learn how to play against Artie while you play Artie. So that is a good thing. Concentrating on probably about 5 of the countries with very low count in some of the others right there. Breaking down some of these numbers, we're looking at 21,000 battles, and I'll be honest, somewhere around 10 to 20 is when people really start to think about, all right, unless they're a reroll or something, all right, what's going on here? Why can't I do what I want to do in this game? How do I get better at this game? And really the 10 to 20,000 is about that point where people start to go, okay, maybe I need to invest a little bit more time and effort if I want to get better. That's about the time they realize it. Or alternately, they go, I don't care. Goes either way. So we look at these numbers here, and we have a low survival rate. That's always a red flag. Usually when you're sub 50%, you have a low survival rate. So that means you're not living, obviously. But what's important about that is you are not doing more damage because you don't live long enough. That's where a lot of the damage comes in from, because you survive longer into the game. That helps you get to the mid to late game, helps you learn the mid to late game, helps you start to get better, get a higher win rate, and learn how to carry. That's how that works. So we need to keep you alive a little bit more. Your damage ratio is low. Your destruction ratio is low. You need to be about 1.0. You need to do as much damage as you take. Period. Dot. That's the first hurdle. That's the first bar you want to try to get to in this game. Get those to 1.0. That will take a long time on your overalls. We'd have to look at your currents. So really pay attention to that. Don't get too crazy about these numbers here. Again, this is a snapshot of your past. So look at your currents and see if you're at that 1.0 and then start working to get there. Base capture points and base defense points, as usual for players at this point in their career or who are trying to get better around the 50% or sub 50%, you will find there's a lot more capture points than defense points. Those should be closer. Ideally, there should be more defense points than capture points. That means that you're probably winning flanks and pushing to caps, whether or not the conditions are met for the cap. We'll talk about that as we go. Experience is relatively low. That could have something. I don't know if you run premium. That changes a little bit with premium. The damage caused and received, that's backwards. Your damage caused needs to be well above your received. Assistance is very low. We'll talk about that a little bit. You've given me 2 TD replays to look at, so I don't know how you play the rest of your tanks, but you do seem to be a little bit passive. We'll talk about it as we go, because I think there's some good stuff in there where you are thinking about moving up and supporting. You're not passive to the point of sitting on cap. Passive, that's good. But sometimes when it's time to get in there and get some hit points or push, at least in these 2 examples, I'm seeing some examples of you not really being willing to do that. And that speaks a little bit to your assist damage right there. Again, these are TDs, so not a whole bunch of assists coming from TDs. I'd have to see other replays from your other tank gameplay to know that. Spotted and destroyed is spotted is okay, a little bit low. That speaks a little bit to the passivity I just talked about, because it is relatively low, especially considering you do play a considerable amount of scouts as well in there. And enemy vehicles destroyed 0.57. That you would really want that to be much higher than 0.57. I don't remember if that one is per game. I think that one is per game. Yeah, per battle. So ideally, if you're killing a guy a battle, you're getting pretty close to contributing every battle. There's a lot more to it than that, but just as a general number to think about, there you go. All right. Let's take a look at the replays. Before we do that, though, if the rest of my subscribers are watching this, this means that Gaidinward allowed me to put this as a public video. If he doesn't, then no worries, Gaidinward. This video is for you, and it will be as a private video just for you to take a look at. As opposed to me doing a text, it's easier for me to talk about it by showing the actual video evidence. So we'll move on from there. I have no idea what it is. All right, now we are back. So he has just logged in or just spawned in right here. He's bottom tier, but he's only one tier down in a really heavily armored and a tank with a great gun. One of the better guns, some of the better armor in this game. And the first thing Gaidinward's going to do is he's going to shoot down this road right here, which I thought, okay, that's fine. But positioning is important, and you may have hit something, or it just went outside of draw distance and you didn't see a hit. But the second shot was really not required. Take one courtesy and move on. I guess that's fine. Two, that was not required. And the reason is because of the speed of this thing, you really want to get on your horse and get to your position. You don't have a lot of time for messing around. You want to get as many shots as early as possible as you can, and that's not easy with a casemate TD. They can be very difficult to get in position, especially on follow-up stuff. We'll talk about that as we go. As far as your setup goes, while we're driving along here, I wanted to mention that 4, 5, 6. That's a kind of an interesting order, but that's to taste, and a lot of people have these things bound to keys on their mice or whatever. I don't know what your situation is, so there you go. I just mentioned it because it seemed a little unusual. But we're carrying 16 HE, 22 AP, and no APCR. Okay, so I would definitely change that up. Put 4, maybe 6 APCR in there. Drop that HE down to 6 or 8, and then put the other whatever's left over into your AP. The tank has great penetration, but sometimes you're just going to want to punch through the face of that Maus or that E100 or that Type 4 or Type 5. So you definitely want some APCR in there. That's going to speak a little bit to your damage problems, because sometimes 2 is just plain old required in this game. If you're free to play and you're worried about the money, got it, noted. But if we up your damage and you are judicious with your gold round, special round use, you're still going to make money. Really, it's damage that makes your cash, right? Makes your silver. You need the cash and you need the damage and the assist. Sometimes you need to live. You need that number 2 to kill one of these tough guys so you can last a little longer. So you absolutely, in my opinion, should be carrying some special ammo, some gold ammo in there. All right, that is enough of that, and you don't need that much HE. Okay, so we come to this corner, we see a 416 there, we see a 7501. Now let's watch what happens here, because the first thing I want to talk about is something that drives me a little bit crazy. I would have taken that shot right there. You definitely had it. It takes you a really long time. I don't know if you went through them or not, but you seem to use shift to zoom in as opposed to the scroll wheel. You do use the scroll wheel sometimes to fine-tune right there, and that's my problem with it. That's my problem with shift, because you had a shot on that dude, and if you'd have been able to just zoom in like that, you wouldn't be staring at this bus or the bottom of this bus and then go, oh, where'd he go? All right. The other thing is, when you took that first shot, you backed out, and I like what you're doing covering, but you can't. There's no shot to the right of all these bricks, right? This bunch of bricks in the way right there. You're gonna have a hard time. Like, oh, where'd he go? Oh, there he is. And holy cow, we had a shot, right? All we had to do was zoom in on this guy, do a little shift, and we get a shot right on him, no problem. Very, very easy to do right there with the scroll wheel. So I don't know what people's personal issues are, whether they can use the scroll wheel, whether it's just they don't like it. I just throw that out because for me, the fine-tuning motor skill capability of the scroll wheel is way better than the shift, because what happens for me is I shift into the bottom of a bus, and while I'm in the general direction of what I want to look at, and then I can always tell when my enemy does that, especially in a casemate, because you'll see them stop and they'll pause for a second, and then and then their gun will start waving right and left wildly as they attempt to find what it is they are trying to shoot at. So let's just go on with that missed opportunity, right? So there's some damage, and that's what I was talking about earlier. How do I get the damage? Well, I need to shoot. So there we go with the shift. All right, this is just shooting fish in a barrel right here. Very good. You do a little shift. This is good. So you do understand the idea that if I'm going to try to spoil shots as much as possible, I just give it a little rock right there, and that's really nicely done. And there are several things along here as we go that speak to your 22,000 battles that you are getting kind of the concept, but what you need to start building on is thinking a couple steps down the road. You seem to be very reactionary at times, and you've got to start to realize what the next move should be a little bit sooner. So we're going to push in. I like this because you're coming in to support these guys. And now we've got a T10 hanging out here. You take a bit of a chance on a not zoomed in shot, but you get them. Good on you. And I will note right here a little bit of an over-reliance on auto-aim. We'll see this happen several times. Now, this was an interesting sequence because the 7501 is pushing a dead tank and using it as armor, which is a smart idea. But he actually has something exposed. So we're going to watch what you do here. I'm not really sure what you're doing there, whether you realized that armor or you thought that was the tank, but that's actually a dead tank right in front of him right there. So we take a couple shots. Again, nothing's going to happen there. So now we get a highlight, and something very interesting is showing here, which is that weak spot of the top hatch. And in actuality, you have a nice shot on it. This is a fairly accurate gun. You could be picking shots right into that weak spot hatch. And that's just a little bit of gameplay knowledge and weak spot understanding. Most tanks have a hatch that's a weak spot. The 7501 does have a pretty nice one. And we just fire 3 times into a dead tank. So I don't know if you realized that was happening or what, but what I like to call it is investigate the target, right? When he's doing something like that, if you don't have a highlight, something's blocking you. Maybe move your mouse around a little bit and go, hey, what? Zoom in and go, what on earth is happening here? Oh, I see, he's behind this tank. But I have a shot on this hatch right here. Fantastic. Aim it in, take that shot, and see if you can't pen into it. So we'll move forward, and this is what I mentioned earlier. I think you have a general idea of supporting your buddies, and that's fantastic. You know, a lot of TD players would still be sitting back there, waiting for somebody to come around the corner. This thing has nice armor. It's got a good gun, fast reload, hits decently hard. And for a casemate that's not very mobile, it's actually a pretty good assault TD. So we're going to come in here. We're going wide. Looks like maybe we're trying to get a shot on the ST1. T10's hanging out right there, and here he comes. All right, so when I see the marker start to move, and I know there's an open spot there that he may cross, and for whatever reason this guy actually comes straight across, I stop and zoom in and wait. And when I zoom in and wait, I stop and I shift my hull. See how your hull is still turning this way? You know he's going that way. So you're going to get against the stop of your gun, which you can see right here, it's against the stop. So shift your hull. Go ahead and use the WASD, shift your hull, and then when you come in, aim out. Can't do it because when I zoom in, it locks it. Aim like here. So that when he comes out, you got a shot. Or if you think he's just crossing here, aim here. As opposed to just sort of, all right, what's he doing? Boom. And as you can see, even at that range and decent shell velocity, you still hit a little bit towards the back of the tank. And now we're auto-aimed, and there's that auto-aim reliance. And the same thing applies there. You know he's going from left to right. Shift your whole hull so that you don't go against the stop and you miss the shot right there. You definitely, I think you could have got a second shot on him, especially if you'd have moved forward after the shot. So he's making a runner across there. Move forward, shift your hull, you're reloaded, shoot him right in the sight again. So another missed opportunity. I thought this was a good job. Probably a little rushed. That dude's not looking at you. This is important. These guys are busy shooting. They know you're there probably because you just shot the T10. It's very obvious you're there. But they're not paying attention. Why? How do I know that? Well, they're paying attention, but they're not going to shoot me. I know that because his gun is pointed that way. So just stop and grab him right there in the back sprocket. Do your damage, track him, stop him from rocking back and forth, and that's going to do a lot of good for your team. And guess what else happens? You get assist if somebody hits him while he is tracked. So he has enough of you shooting at him, comes around, and the E75 does his thing. You out-reload that ST1 by miles. I'd have pushed forward left a bit and then shifted right, and between you and the E75, absolutely shotgun this guy down. See how long it kind of takes you to get that shot? Then we go auto-aim, then we shift, then we look for a shot, and that over-reliance on auto-aim, I think that is hurting you a little bit. I've noted this on a couple other people along the way, that it can certainly help you. And again, depending on your situation, whatever your personal situation is, sometimes that's all people can do, or that's the best thing they can do. And you know, I don't need to get into that. If you can, try to not auto-aim as much. I think you're going to find yourself getting a little bit more damage because of the missed shots. Now, this was interesting because now you're going to auto-aim the LHM TV. I would have investigated the standard B just a little bit. It looks like he's covered up. And then we, look at this, we auto-aim this guy, and we're waiting for a shot, and this is amazing. So there you go. Shut up, Guido, I can auto-aim, I'm awesome. All right, noted, you shot him. All right, this is where I was talking about follow-on moves. Oh, let's look at the situation on the map right now. All of their tanks are over there in the west. You got a standard B right there. Your cap is potentially threatened. So what are your options? Move up into these buildings over here where the IS-3 is in order to take shots. Move up along these buildings and use some cover. Potentially go towards their cap. I don't like that because this is where the enemy is. Or what you do, which is basically drive right up the middle with a Conway, a Su-101, a Scorpion, and artillery. And that's my point on follow-on. How do I live longer? What is the best move at this point? How do I continue to keep my gun in the game? It's an even game. In fact, they've got a slight advantage, and we're simply going to drive right up the middle. Now, we do dodge down a little bit here, but we're going to have an over-reliance on our tank's armor. We don't have 6th sense, apparently, as well. It's something I noticed. And now we're doomed. We're out in the middle. Everyone's got a shot on us, and down we go. The Lancet actually gets a shot into our side because he's got a different angle right there, right? No surprise, they're going to be kind of spread out up here more than likely. So your best bet was to go, okay, we cleaned this up. This guy's going to go to cap. There's always some dude who's going to just drive to the cap no matter what's happening in the game. Nothing you can do about that. But for you, definitely not the middle. I'd have fallen back and worked in these buildings because you really needed to regroup for a second and go, all right, what is going on here? Can we peel a couple of these guys out of here if they're foolishly pushing? Can we hang out back here and maybe work on the standard B who's doing the spotting for everybody? But really, this right out in the open move was the worst thing you could do. All right, let's move on to the second one. Here's the second example, and we're top tier. This is a good setup. Now, let's talk positioning here for just a minute. You're going to go Valley. That I will tell you right off the bat that people who go Valley drive me absolutely crazy because it is really a fairly useless way to go. The town is where it's at. You need to win the town, and then you can sort out people who push in the Valley. But if you choose to go to Valley, let's talk about how you do Valley if you're going to do that. As we move up, we've got one of the most heavily armored tanks in the game, probably the best gun in the game, really. Looking at the enemy, I don't know, you might argue the JP's close or the ISU. You get tracked by the T-44 right there. But this thing's got a good alpha, it's got a great reload, it's accurate, and it is on a pretty good gun platform of the T-28 as far as casemates go. So we're going to go up here, and you're it, right? Between you and the Carnarvon hold down, it's all about you two over here. So pay attention to what's going on in the battle. A T-44 showed up, but he ran away. Look at he's still running. That's great SA right there. That means more than likely he had no friends with him. And he saw a T-28 and a Carnarvon coming. Potentially, I don't know if he saw the KV-3 or not. And he went, that's not for me. And off he goes. So either he has no friends or very limited friends, and he's running back there. The Carnarvon gets a piece of him. And now we're going to come around. And we've got a decent hold down tank. We do have weak spots up there on your hatches. And we have an IS. And now we're just sort of messing around, trying to take shots on the T-44. The IS comes up, he backs off. The good news for you is there's no artillery, so that probably made your decision to go this way a little bit easier. And we're going to make a little shift over to here. And now our buddies are here. So now we've got a KV-3, a Carnarvon, and a Black Prince slowly showing up. I don't know what the KV-3's plan is. Excuse my lag. And there we go. That has to be expected. And I'm not really sure. There we go. So we shift over. You shot at the top superstructure, which is highly angled. You really needed to go for the lower part of the hull. Really need, it's highly angled and he's got a little back slope there. I'd definitely aim a little bit lower. There you go. That one actually goes into the rock. So there's an IS, a JP, and a T-44 that you know of. Looks like someone's shooting back at you. Nothing going on, right? Look at the town. The thing about going to the town, even with this, and what I hear from a lot of people is, oh, I'm too slow. Like, well, about now you'd be showing up. And it is a bummer when you're in town fighting a team that's aggressive like the one that you have right now. And you're the red guys. You're working on these dudes, and all of a sudden, here comes the big TD slowly trundling into the fight, adding his gun and armor to the whole thing. And all of a sudden, all his little buddies have the cover of your big gun and armor, and it gets very ugly very fast. And that is why I take my TDs, heavy assault TDs like this, to places like the town, even though it takes me a while to get there, Once you get there, you start working them over. And again, the problem with this valley push is it's usually stagnated like this. Nobody wants to get forward and get going. And you really needed to. I mean, if you'd have just pushed in there, the JP's taking a shot. If you'd have just pushed in there, kind of like this guy is doing right now, that IS would be dead already. And probably some of these extra hits that everyone's taken by going in one at a time, they would have not taken as many of those hits. So really being the lead dog, the lead sled dog in this case, and let's pause this before you shoot, would have been really great for the team. I lost my zoom. That happens sometimes. There we go. So let's take a look at this, and it looks like that's all you've got, right? So he's hold down. That is another plug for gold rounds. If you'd have had number 2 to dab, you probably would have gone through that guy's superstructure. That reduces his hit points, gives you damage, clears out more hit points on the flank for your team, and it helps your win rate. That's how that works, right? You're going to maximize the capability of your tank, and when it's needed, you use it. Here's the auto-aim reliance again. We do essentially zoom in, but you accepted that shot to the left as opposed to looking to the right for something that wasn't going into that highly angled front armor right there. And really, your 100% hit points, you should have been up front. Just push into these guys. One other thing is, when that JP2 fired, that's when you go. JP2 fires, misses, whatever happens, he's on a reload, push in, get down below his gun, and force him to expose himself to come out after you guys right now. See, that's what the Carnarvon's doing. He's pushed him back, and you had all that time to move up. One thing you also need to do is, in between shots or while you're moving, look around and see what your buddy's doing. Have a general idea of where everybody's headed. Take a look if they're taking hits. You can find out if maybe somebody hidden is hitting them. And we'll come on up here onto the cap. So as I said earlier, good on you for moving and supporting. I think that the timing of it needs to be worked on a little bit right there. But the basic knowledge and understanding of what you're trying to do in general is absolutely there. So that's a very good thing. That's something you can work with and try to get better at. The T-44 is highly unlikely to be there. You'd have taken a hit. Unfortunately, you don't have sixth sense, so that's a de facto spotting mechanism right there. That would have helped you know if he was actually still in there. But the Carnarvon went around the outside and he's not there, so more than likely that T-24 is falling back. Another reason why you would think that is he's already showed the proclivity for doing that exact thing. He ran back already, and the T-25 sneaks a shot into you. So this was an interesting sequence because you're taking shots from the E-25. There's quite a few tanks over there, but you've really got the enemy stuffed into this corner and a lot of good crossfire. The question is, how do you work that? We're going to come in here, and we're just doing the wiggle jiggle, wiggle back and forth, wiggle jiggle, taking hits, E-25, trying to track you. Good job on the wiggle jiggle, but holy cow, you got shots, man. These guys are here for the shooting. I'll show you exactly what I mean. Look at that. Now, you don't right here because of this level of your gun, but you only have to go a little bit further forward towards this bush. As a matter of fact, I might have gone over towards this bush and put this bush between me and them. I don't know. Once you fired, they'd see you, but potentially on the reload or somewhere else in the sequence, you might go dark. Unknown, maybe not, but it's better than just being out in the open. Plus, as you get to the edge, you'll get over this little ridge and you'll start to be able to punish the Black Prince because he is there. You've got good armor. Go find that guy. Now, I understand you're putting your front armor to those guys, but holy cow. And it looks like you finally realized that right there. And that's just working your SA. This is actually pretty nice. Catch that guy on the side of the nugget. Black Prince is right there. Two Black Princes, I guess. The one that you just hit and the one that's further down there. Shooting into the blind area. Now, here's another thing. More than likely, you know exactly where that dude is. The bush is right there. I can't quite get it over, but one more click. There you go. They're in that bush right there. Sometimes, if you just point at that bush and fire, you'll get a hit. So that was another option right there. The other thing is, now that the Black Prince that was here is dead, I would push forward to where you get close enough that they light when they fire. Right now, you guys are getting rocked because nobody can see those two. If you get close enough, more than likely, you'll see them. And maybe that's what happens here, I think. You finally figure, nope, you're forward and back. And this is what I was talking about earlier about setting the conditions for a cap. you really hadn't set the conditions for a cap. You were getting rocked. The good news is you had people behind them that were able to pick up where they were. That was just high. I don't know. I'm not sure why you aimed at the top of the tank right there, but now we go to auto aim. Take him down, and it's just the 7501 left. He's staring at you. Nice little shot into him there. Good job with that. And we are up to 780. He bounces another shot off of you, and he's pretty much done at that point. And you guys get the win. So good on you with the win. 780 damage, 1,342 assists. So my point with that is I wasn't jazzed about the initial positioning, but I got it. You know, some people like to go there because it isolates the threat to the front. I think you guys could have been much more aggressive, and specifically you, based on the situation you found right there. So going to a spot and saying, you know, I fight in the valley because that's what I like, and usually it's the stagnant fight and I have to be careful. That's noted. That's kind of the meta. But if you look at it and you get there and you say, holy cow, look at this advantage we have. The T-44 ran off. All we have to do is run over this IS and then push up underneath this JP2, and we've won this flank. That's the kind of thought process you need to have so that your next move comes faster, right? As opposed to going, well, I go here and I be very careful and I snipe guys until they die. Well, okay, that probably is the usual on the Valley, but in this case, you guys had a huge advantage, and if you'd just been more aggressive, you'd have cleaned those guys up much, much faster. Then, when you got on the cap, sitting on the cap and not being aggressive once again, sort of being passive and sitting back and hoping other people light, nearly got you killed right there and put the game in a little bit of doubt. So I think if you'd have been a little faster to notice you had some shots and maybe just push on into these guys who were shooting you, helping your team light them up and get shots themselves, you would have ended that fight a lot faster, and it wouldn't have been near as exciting as it was. Now, as it was, you end up winning pretty well, but for a few potatoes there, when they were shooting the guys on the cap with impunity, things were looking a little bit dicey until your other TDs finally got in around behind them there. Just imagine the 100 M1 and the Su-130 and the Scorpion had all sat in the back. What would happen there? You guys would have been slowly picked to death. All right, man. Thanks for sending this in. I do appreciate it. Hopefully, if it's okay with you, this will be seen by everybody. If not, no worries. I hope it helped. Let me know, and we will see you.